There's Godzilla, the destroyer of worlds, a constant reminder of humanity's sins and the folly of men. Then there's Ultraman, guardian of worlds, the representative of humanity's hope to become greater. When hope and despair clash, who wins? And what does that mean for mankind? In this video, we will seek the truth amidst the battle of the Titans. Before we get started, I would like to cover a few ground rules first. First, I will be narrowing Godzilla down to one specific incarnation, so Godzilla won't be able to use abilities he had in other incarnations. Meaning, Showa Godzilla won't be able to regrow from a single cell, like the Millennium Godzilla can, and Legendary Godzilla won't be able to use magnesis or do awesome dropkick kaijitsu like Showa Godzilla. Second, I will be using versions of the character that are most contemporary with each other. For this video, I will be pitting the Showa-era Ultraman from the original 1966 series of the same name, and later appearing sporadically throughout the entire franchise, against the Showa-era Godzilla. Specifically, the second generation Showa-era Godzilla who first appeared in Godzilla Raids Again, and lastly in Terror of Mechagodzilla. We will be analyzing these characters using the same 5 attributes I used to analyze Ultraman vs. Superman in my previous Who Would Win. Please check that out if you haven't already. Namely the 5 attributes of strength, speed, durability, battle experience, and special abilities. Now that the ground rules have been set, the battle can begin. Starting with strength, we will first give the spotlight to Ultraman. Now, Ultraman is no slouch in the strength department, casually swinging monsters like Red King, weighing 20,000 tons according to the Ultraman wiki, around by the tail. His most impressive feat of strength, however, is in episode 22 of Ultraman, in which he swings the 120,000 ton Teleston around by the tail. For reference, that weighs more than the current Legendary era Godzilla. However, we see that he does have a limit as he fails to lift the monster Skydon, who, according to the Ultraman wiki, weighs 200,000 tons. Showa-era Godzilla has similar feats of strength, casually throwing around monsters like Gabra, who according to both Gojopedia and Wikizilla, weighs 23,000 metric tons, Abira, who weighs the same, Ghidorah, who is stated by the same sources to weigh 30,000 metric tons, and Megalon, who weighs 40,000 metric tons. The heaviest monster he's thrown in the movie series would be Hedorah, who weighs 48,000 metric tons. But this isn't even his most impressive feat of strength. According to YouTuber Godzilla Guy, in the Toho Ultraman knockoff series Zone Fighter, Godzilla shows up and lifts a 91,000 metric ton heavy kaiju named Zandora. Even with this feat, however, it does not beat Ultraman's feat of swinging the 120,000 ton Teleston by the tail, so the strength category goes to Ultraman. Next is speed, and in this case we will be analyzing speed based on 3 subcategories: air, land, and sea. As for sea, I think I'll just give that to Godzilla because I'm not even sure if Ultraman swims. As for land, I'd say that Ultraman has a slight advantage there, although Godzilla can cover a massive amount of distance in no time at all with that tail slide of his, just because Ultraman seems to move much faster and more maneuverably in hand-to-hand combat than Godzilla does. But this is relatively hard category to judge as neither character has done much running away, so it's hard to estimate their speeds on land. Now, you may be wondering why air is a category here, as Ultraman's the only one of these characters who can fly. But you'd be wrong, because Godzilla really can fly. In Godzilla vs. Hedorah, Godzilla takes to the skies using his heat beam as a propelling force in pursuit of Hedorah. Now, I don't really have any official estimates of either character's speeds, but it's clear to me from simple observation that Ultraman is still the faster flyer. Godzilla's flight actually starts off slow and gradually builds up speed, whereas Ultraman can instantly reach his default flight speed. Godzilla also covers a lot less ground as he takes 41 seconds to reach Hedorah across a stretch of land that I don't think can be any longer than a few miles, guesstimating based on footage and the fact that the terrain doesn't change at all in the midst of his flight, indicating to me that we haven't gotten that far. Ultraman, on the other hand, can literally fly to outer space in about 24 seconds, as seen in episode 35 of Ultraman, which is about half the time it took Godzilla to catch up with Hedorah across just a few miles. To be honest, I'm not exactly sure what altitude space becomes this tint of black we see here, but the Kármán line, the point at which space officially begins, is 100 miles above the surface, so Ultraman can, at the very least, travel 4.17 miles a second, or 15,012 miles an hour, and likely much more. So, Ultraman wins in the speed category, as well with a well-deserved victory on land and in the air. So what about durability? Godzilla is almost invulnerable to anything, with the most advanced forms of human artillery, including maser tanks, doing little to nothing to damage him, and in particular Ghidorah's gravity beams, which is presumably what he used to wipe out all life on Venus, seems to aggravate him rather than do any substantial damage. This may not be enough to justify Godzilla surviving the Spatium Ray, however, when you take into account that even Mothra was able to survive a hit from the gravity beam, and monsters much bigger, in fact about twice the size of Godzilla in mass, have literally exploded from the power of the Spatium Ray. You may be tempted to believe that the second generation Showa Godzilla survived a direct blast from the atomic bomb, as that is a big part of Godzilla lore in most stories, thus adding to the estimation of his durability. But there isn't, as far as I know, any indication that this specific incarnation of Godzilla, the second generation Showa Godzilla, has ever survived an atomic blast, but was simply awakened by the increasing levels of radiation in the atmosphere. As invulnerable as Godzilla is, there are a few instances where he's shown some weakness. In particular, Gigan cut him open pretty bad in Godzilla vs. Gigan, something that doesn't bode well for Godzilla against Ultraman's kaiju-cutting spatium discs. And Hedorah seemed to gravely injure Godzilla using her acidic pollution. As far as I can recall, there hasn't been a major instance of Ultraman being cut or sliced in the way Godzilla has, but he did take a battering with Gamora's tail, something that would put him at a major advantage against Godzilla. He was also temporarily blinded by a flash of light from Zaragas, but considering all the other monsters with their flashy heat rays haven't blinded him in the same way, this doesn't really come into play in this fight with Godzilla. The worst damage Ultraman has taken was when Zeton hit him in the color timer with a Zeton beam, which actually killed him before Zophi stepped in with a spare life. This indicates to me that Ultraman's color timer is a particularly weak area, a statement reinforced by the movie Ultraman Z-Earth 2, the battle between light and shadow, in which the team in that movie tries to replicate this attack against Z-Earth Shadow by trying to fire a Zeton beam into Z-Earth Shadow's color timer. For durability, I think that Godzilla and Ultraman actually tie. They can both injure each other in substantial ways, Godzilla with his tail and Ultraman with his spatium discs and spatium ray, and tank other forms of attack. Specifically, Ultraman can likely take a few good hits from Godzilla's heat beam, and Godzilla can likely take Ultraman's melee attacks. Ultraman may have a slight edge because of his spatium ray, which may or may not be able to blow up Godzilla, but I highly doubt that Godzilla would just explode. Well, what about his battle experience? Well, both characters have a ton. Throughout the whole Showa era, Godzilla fights about 15 different monsters, including King Ghidorah, who presumably has a great amount of battle experience himself, as he has been used as a weapon of invasion by various alien races such as the Exilians and the Kiloks. This version of Godzilla has also fought against King Kong, and while we don't know much about his battle experience, he seemed to have plenty of battle wit, hiding and waiting for a chance to grab Godzilla's tail rather than charging blindly at him like other monsters would. Such experience seems to have made Godzilla battle savvy as well, as he is seen to actively prepare for his battle against Mechagodzilla by magnetizing himself. I am making none of this up, if you were wondering. Ultraman has a lot going for him in terms of experience too. He has lived 20,000 years, and it is implied that he's been fighting kaiju all that time, something that comes across in the shows. In the series, Ultraman has fought a total of 41 kaiju and giant aliens, Seijin. and more in later appearances throughout the Ultra series. His most impressive showing, however, is in Mega Monster Battle when he fought Ultraman Belial alongside just 2 of his brothers, and held his ground much longer than a little horde of Ultramen, which challenged Belial moments earlier, including prominent Ultramen such as Taro, Naos, 721, Max, Xanon, Julian, Powered, Great, Chuck, Scott, Beth, Mebius, and Hikari, all of which, except the unnamed ones and Xanon, featured prominently in Ultraman shows, gaining just as much if not more experience than was shown in the original Ultraman show, which means that Ultraman outclasses all of those in battle experience. As much experience as the King of the Monsters has, Ultraman's 20,000 years of existence, and yes, technically Godzilla's older, but he's mostly been in hibernation all that time, so that doesn't really count. His kill count in the original show, and going toe-to-toe with the devil of the Ultraverse, gives Ultraman a good advantage in this category. Well, what about special abilities? Godzilla has some interesting abilities to say the least. He can, of course, breathe his deadly heat beam, employ traditional martial arts techniques, somehow, use his massive tail, something that put Ultraman out of commission in his fight with Gamora, drop kick from a massive distance, fly, and magnetize himself. I'd love to say that Godzilla could use his magnetic powers against Ultraman, but in spite of appearances, Ultraman's skin is not made out of metal in any form, but spatium, a form of light. So that ability, while interesting, is kind of useless in this battle. As for his other abilities, his martial arts and tail would be the most effective against Ultraman. As for Ultraman, he can use spatium energy in a variety of attacks, including his spatium discs, spatium ray, and a powerful golden variant of said ray, issue a green spiral attack which can make monsters instantaneously explode, use telekinesis to hold monsters suspended midair, and shoot water from his hands. Yeah, that show was weird. All of these abilities, except for the water thing, would put Godzilla at a severe disadvantage and possibly end the King of the Monsters. So I have to give the edge to Ultraman for special abilities. So now that we've analyzed all 5 factors, who wins? Well, with a score of 4 to 5, Ultraman statistically comes out on top as our victor. However, Godzilla still has a good chance of winning against the Giant of Light, as his battle IQ is immense. Much more immense than any kaiju Ultraman has ever fought before. So it would stand as a major advantage against an Ultraman who isn't used to fighting the brightest monsters. All Godzilla would need to do is see that Ultraman is particularly weak in the color timer, and against tail swipes as demonstrated in his fight with Gamora, as I've mentioned before. Honestly, based off that one fight with Gamora, I'd say Godzilla could easily pull a win out of his, tail. On the other hand, Ultraman has so many unique abilities he could pull out of thin air, which I'm not sure that Godzilla is ready for, such as the monster exploding spatium ray, the deadly sharp spatium discs, or literally being able to freeze his enemies mid-air, something that I'm not sure Godzilla really has a counter for. For a final verdict, I'd say that the battle could really go either way. And if these two ever fought multiple times, I'd say that each combatant would be able to rake in a few wins depending on how the fight goes. This is kind of a non-committal answer, but this is really the best I can give considering that each character is constantly evolving and fluctuating in his powers and abilities. For instance, in one episode, Ultraman may freeze his monster in midair, and for the remainder of the series forget he ever had that ability, something that would probably come in handy against Zeton. And while Godzilla can certainly kick the tails of a world-destroying Ghidorah any day, a smog monster may prove too much for him on occasion. So I'd say it's more than fair to say that either character could win on a particularly good or a particularly bad day. But now, with all the facts at your disposal, what do you think? Do you think Ultraman's powers and experience give him the edge, or Godzilla's astounding battle IQ and hard-hitting tail? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And let me know if you'd like to see a modern take on this classic rivalry using Shin Godzilla and Shin Ultraman. Until then, this has been JP Zilla.